We got a bidet!
Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we are talking about the season finale of The Mandalorian Season 3. We finally got here. We had a lot of stuff leading up to it, and we had a lot of hopes for it as well. But we're going to talk to you about what happened in the episode, and then we're going to tell you our thoughts on the episode, and then we'll probably tell you our thoughts on Season 3 afterwards as well. So I'll go ahead and just dive right into the episode. We kick it off basically right where we left off from the previous episode. Bo-Katan and the group of Mandos that happen to get away from Gideon and the guards are running through the tunnels, and they're trying to basically get away enough so they can find some sort of opening in the cave so that somebody can make contact with the people that are up in orbit, because Gideon sent ships to go take out that big capital ship that they have up in orbit. So eventually they do get to a point after duking it out with some stormtroopers and whatnot, and Axe finds a way to jetpack up and fly towards the ships, or the ship, I should say. And he jetpacks from land all the way up there. Pretty interesting. I know Sarah and I have our suspicions of how much gas they had in the jetpack, especially knowing some of the stuff from previous episodes in the season. But we'll just keep on keeping on with what's happening. So Axe goes all the way up there. While he's on his way up, Bo-Katan and the group are trying to find some sort of safety area that they can, hold off until some reinforcements show up. And also, Mando is he's been taken prisoner by the Dark Troopers, as Gideon called them, the stormtrooper looking dudes with the Beskar armor. And he's being transported by these two stormtroopers, or Dark Troopers, sorry, they look like stormtroopers, so that's why I keep calling them that, but they're Dark Troopers. And they're escorting him towards the debriefing room, and eventually Mando decides to try to, fight his way out of it. And he takes care of them for the most part, but then he gets, or the Dark Troopers get the upper hand, and Mando gets saved by Grogu, because eventually I think one of the Dark Troopers picks up a pistol off the ground, is about to pop Mando, and then we see Grogu in his IG mech suit come up and grab the gun, and he keeps pushing the button to no. And then he takes care of that stormtrooper. Like,
Jeremy, there's no pistols in Star Wars. They're blasters. Come on.
it's called a blaster pistol, thank you. Play the games, gosh. Yeah, so they take care of that guy, and then once everything's good, Mando uses his little, communication device to reach out to R5 and tells R5 that he needs basically R5 to link into the system for the base and give him information about different things, including eventually, like Sarah's background here, Mando does eventually get to this area of the base, and R5 has to help him take down the shields, or plasma walls, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, Mando's got that going on. All these scenes are kind of like going by within a minute of each. Like, you get a minute of Mando, then you get a minute of Axe flying, a minute of Bo-Katan doing her thing. So it's all very weaved and intertwined.
Pacing's pretty fast for the most part.
Yeah, so I'll go back to Bo here for a minute. So Bo and her group eventually do get to an area where the scavenger people that had the boat, they tell Bo-Katan that they've basically been able to farm some plant life There's like this, it kind of looks like a cave, but there's definitely an opening up above, and it's all like green lush. So it kind of gives her some reassurance that, life can be started here on Mandalore. So maybe this is kind of, the beginning of not only her, but all the other Mandos buying into the idea of re-inhabiting Mandalore because they're trying to take it back. Axe, who's up in the sky, eventually gets to the ship and he tells all the people to get out and like all the Mandalorian people to go down to the planet to safety, be the reinforcements that Bo-Katan needs. And they all hop in ships. They all fly down there. And as they fly down, Gideon's ships fly up and they're going to attack the capital ship that they have up above. Axe does fight off a good handful of, well, I think he only destroys like one or two, but the ships really damage the Axe's ship to the point where it's like all up in flames. And his idea is, well, I'm going to make use of this big thing. And he starts setting the course down so that the ship will eventually fly down to the base and he can use that as a big old battering ram right into the heart of the base. So even though that it's, on fire and about to be destroyed, I'm curious though to know why the TIE fighters didn't continuously try to blow it up. Maybe they just weren't thinking that he would use the ship in that kind of a way. But
I guess maybe they already saw it crashing, quote unquote.
yeah. So that's what Axe is up to. And yeah, he's kind of aiming this thing to come down and destroy, like go right into the base. Because in the last episode, we saw, when Mando and all of them realized what was really going on, the Imperial base was fairly open because it had like two sides to the cave. And then there's like this big opening in the top. So that's kind of where he's aiming the sucker. So eventually the reinforcements arrive for Bo-Katan. I believe the armor is the one that goes, "Yo, Bo-Katan, your reinforcements have arrived." And, they're flying down as cavalry. It's kind of like air cavalry in a way. And all the people that are with Bo-Katan fly up to the sky and join them. And we get this moment where Bo-Katan takes out the Darksaber and basically is leading a charge towards the base with all these Mandalorians flying. And they are eventually met with the Dark Troopers that fly with their jetpacks. And we get this really cool dogfight of all these people taking each other out. I mean, it was a really cool scene. So Bo-Katan is busy with that. Axe is doing his thing, taking the ship to eventually crash into the base. So that leaves Mando. And what Mando is up to is after he takes out, these troopers and R5 takes care of the shields in the area that is behind Sarah there, this little catwalk area to Gideon's quote unquote office. He gets in there and he looks around, the doors start to shut and close, basically cut him off to leaving. And him and Grogu are basically going to be battling Gideon. Sorry, for some reason I forgot his name there. So they're going to duke it out with Gideon. Well, Mando goes after Gideon, and then eventually the Praetorian Guards show up, and Grogu decides to distract them while Mando tries to take care of Gideon. We get this interesting scene of like Grogu jumping around and stuff up in the little scaffoldings of the room. So the Praetorian Guards kind of look like they are really no use because they can't handle a little child. That's going on there. Mando is duking it out with Gideon, and he's really not doing very well. Gideon, his suit is kind of like a RoboCop suit where it's a robot. It's essentially a mech. You can hear the noises of the it's making different noises as he's moving. It's not just he's moving fluidly, he's moving like a robot. So
One thing that we forgot to mention before Mando actually meets Gideon is the clones.
oh yeah, we did. Yeah, that's pretty important. Mando does realize that what Gideon is doing on the at this base is that he's cloning himself. So all the tubes that had clones in it from the previous episode, those are actually clones of Gideon. And what Gideon is trying to do, and we kind of got a little bit of a hint as to what he was doing with cloning in the previous episode, was that he was trying to gather like the what he calls the best people, like fighters of the world or the galaxy, I should say. So like he's trying to capture Mandalorians, of course. That's why he was trying to take Mando to the debriefing. He was also trying to get Jedi, so that's why he was trying to get Grogu, because he wants to infuse Force abilities into his clones, which we know that cloning Force powers isn't super easy. I don't really think they even have the proper technology yet to have that be possible. Remember, the Emperor's thing that happens, the process when he is actually back is many, many years after Return of the Jedi. He does transport his being into another body, but it's not the best body, so to speak. Anyways, back on track. So Gideon has these clones. Mando does blow up all the clones, so that's why Gideon is like super upset with him. Yeah, they're duking it out. Mando's not doing so hot, and eventually Bo-Katan shows up, and she decides to help out Mando, and she takes on Gideon while Mando goes to help out Grogu because he's, being antagonized by the Praetorian guards. So Mando takes out those guards, and Bo-Katan is duking it out with Gideon. And while they are fighting, Gideon actually crushes the Darksaber in her hand. So the Darksaber is no more, unfortunately. Oh yeah, and then I believe Mando comes back, and again, Axe is bringing the ship down into this area. So about this part in the episode, that ship is just about to hit, and so all the Mandalorians are trying to fly away from the base. And when that ship crashes, it sends like a big thing of fire all over the place. Gideon falls off the ramp or the platform that they're on, and Grogu actually uses the Force to protect him, Bo-Katan, and Mando in the base. Bo-Katan tried to protect Grogu with her like little shield thing, but ultimately it was Grogu that saved them. So this Imperial base is destroyed. So that's like the bulk of the episode. Then we have a couple of extra things afterwards. One is they do the Mandalorian ceremony where Grogu becomes part of the Mandalorian group. Somebody else does. I think somebody else has something done too.
So it was Paz's kid
Ah,
who
that's
was trying to do the ceremony before he got attacked by the monster, except this time they're doing it in the living waters.
yeah. So he gets his time.
Takes his oath.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to call it a baptism because it's human world thing. That's not a Star Wars thing, but it's very similar, pouring of the water and whatnot. So, yeah, the Paz gets that, and then Grogu gets it as well.
Paz's kid.
Paz's kid, sorry.
Paz
Well,
is dead.
once I want 1 second here. So when Grogu gets it done, they name him Din Grogu. So he takes the first name of his master. So that's why I was kind of wondering if that kid's name is Paz as well. Or Paz.
So
Because if he's the apprentice of him, then it sounds like they take their first name. While she's looking that up, we get that little scene. We also get a small little shot of the mythosaur, like it shows a little underwater clip. We also see Mando go to the New Republic outpost, and he tells our like chief dude from the New Republic. the New Republic that he's willing to do jobs for him, just kind of a case by case basis. Doesn't want the boring ones, of course. And the cost is there's like this little IG head that is on the bar. So like there's a bunch of droid decorations all over the place, and one of them is an IG head. And so he takes the IG head, and the next place we go to is Navarro. And so he meets with Grief, and Grief still gives him his property, and he gets a little house as well. But before we actually see the house, we see that Mando rebuilt IG-11, and he is now going to be the sheriff of Navarro. So we get the IG-11 character back. He does have like the colors of the city, which is kind of cool, I suppose. But we do finish the show with Mando with his feet kicked up, basically, in his new house. And Grogu is playing with his food with the Force. And we get this weird, like, circle shot thing that hones in on Grogu and then ends the season. Any luck?
His name is Ragnar Vizsla. So they use the normal last name nomenclature because his dad is Paz Vizsla. And in terms of why it's Din Grogu instead of Grogu Jaren, I guess, because it's Din Djarin. I guess for them, the Din is the surname, and why it's in the front instead of the back, I'm not sure.
Kind of like doctor kind of a thing. Like if you say Doctor so and so, then it's Din so and so.
That's a title, whereas surname is last name.
Oh,
But I don't know why the last name is first.
I don't either. Maybe it's his tax documents, birth certificate. But yeah, so that is the episode. So uh just some thoughts. Sarah, what did you think of the episode?
Overall, I thought it was pretty good. I liked that there was a lot going on. There was a lot of action. There was some things that were a little, I guess, not so believable because of previous episodes. And by that, I mean the jetpack fuel. I have serious doubts that Axe would have had enough jetpack fuel to, he'd already used some, I'm sure, from when he was, battling the other guy on the ship to when they were battling some of the dark troopers, and then now he has to get all the way breaking atmosphere to get all the way up to that ship, and then he somehow still has enough to get off of that ship and land on the ground somewhere. Maybe he could have refueled on the ship and just not shown it, but I don't think he would have even made it that far.
Well, when he jetpacked up, I kept remembering, I think it was the Avengers. Is that when Iron Man like flies way up in the sky and he gets so high up there that he starts to freeze? I was kind of
Probably.
wondering if that was going to happen to him, just because I thought I don't know about that. Like even just the believability that he could fly around in space.
Yeah.
But I know there's things out there with Star Wars that's probably matches up with what is canon. But
Yeah. It's one of those things of I could have believed it if they hadn't done an episode like 3 episodes ago where they supposedly didn't have enough jetpack fuel to go save a child that was not, probably a few miles away, but enough that they needed a ship for it. And so to make such heavy emphasis on a whole episode based on not having enough fuel to now suddenly you have enough fuel to break atmosphere. Come on. That's you know. Um but I mean I guess that's kind of one smaller thing. Um Gideon's death. Let's talk about that for a second. Do we
yeah.
think it was real or do we think it was a clone maybe that died? I don't think that Din Djarin actually blew up the other clones. I think he just let out the fluid, which seemed kind of weird to me because we saw that all the fluid broke out, But I don't think there was an actual explosion, was there?
Gideon says, like, when he first meets up with Mando, he says, basically, you killed my clones before they could take their first breath.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So my assumption is that they blew up, but I guess they're definitely dead.
Yeah.
They
And
are.
I forgot he said that. I feel like there's a decent chance this could be a clone. If we remember the Dark Troopers from before, they were very robotic, and I don't think they were even actually human life forms in there. They were just robots. So, could these new Dark Troopers be actual soldiers? Sure. But could this Moff Gideon trooper be like some form of part robot, part human? It definitely wouldn't be the first time that we've seen that, you know? And he sounded so mechanical whenever he moved, like when he was walking.
Yeah. I think one of the bigger things we should probably talk about is whether or not it was the real Gideon that
That's
was.
what I was trying to get at, is if it's a clone or not.
Yeah. I kind of think it, because when we first saw Gideon, let's see, was it, I think it was one episode. He was only in 2 episodes, so it was last episode. When we first saw him, I felt like something was off when we saw him. Like,
Minus the mustache?
minus the mustache. Like and minus the fact that, maybe he just looks a little older, but something didn't seem right. Like he almost looked too perfect, like his skin and stuff, because
I could see that.
we know that he was broken out of that the shuttle Tidarian, or not shuttle
The
Tidarian,
prison shuttle.
Lambda shuttle. Yeah. When he was broken out of that, there was explosions and stuff, and I find it slightly hard to believe that he wouldn't have some sort of visual, maybe some scarring, or um, he looked too similar to his clones as opposed to what we've seen in the past. So that's why I half wonder um, if that was a clone, especially being at that base. You and I kind of talked about, he had that mech type suit, so maybe that was to make up for clones maybe not being strong, or just because when we saw him in the past, he was a good fighter. When he fought Mando in season 2, he could hold his own. He didn't need to have a robotic suit. So it almost makes me wonder if the clone, because they're new and fresh and they don't have the experience that he did, that maybe they need that extra oomph kind of a thing. But
Very
I
well could be.
I don't think it was him.
I don't
Also,
really think so either.
which is, it bothers me that his character is kind of being handled this way, because I think Gideon is really cool, and I don't think this season did a very good job with him. I think he deserved more screen time. I think he deserved a better arc for this show, not just basically a 1 hour special, so to
We
speak.
need a villains show.
We just needed a villain in this show.
Yeah, fair point.
You don't just show the big baddie in the last 2 episodes. It has to be something throughout, not just, oh, yo, did you hear about this dude? Maybe he's in the galaxy.
How
And
do
then
you feel about him saying you're gonna see a lot of me and referring to the clones, but we all thought he was gonna be in the season a whole bunch?
I think that was smart on his. I mean, do I like it? No, but it makes sense. It probably drove a lot of fans nuts. Um, but yeah, now once we reflect on what Giancarlo said during his interview for season 3, and he says there's a lot. I'd have to look up the direct quote, but my guess is that he said there's a lot of me in the show, and not I'm in the show for a lot of it or something like that. Because those are two totally different things. If I'm in the show a lot, that means a lot of screen time. Whereas if there's a lot of me in the show, that could be just multiple beings. So I think he did a good job on his play of words, and it's kind of funny because I think he said that at Star Wars Celebration, And really, that if you're able to put 1 and 2 together before it releases, people probably could have predicted that. Like that was a really solid, I'm gonna give you a spoiler, but it wasn't a spoiler kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I think the episode was good. I thought it was cool. Unfortunately, it wasn't what I wanted. I know I don't want to sound entitled like I'm supposed to get some sort of episode that I wanted, but it knowing how we ended season 1 and season 2, I had some expectations for this one that I felt just weren't met. There was no reveal. There was no really big thing. Of course, Gideon shows off that his clones were him, and not Snoke or the Emperor or anything like that. But that wasn't enough. I almost feel like they should have done something along the lines of, um, you know, Mando took 3 episodes to bathe in the waters. I feel like when he went to those waters, they should have discovered the base and, came across it or some sort of Imperial thing and moved the story along faster. I feel like this should have been the middle of the season, and then there would have been something big to finish it off that was bigger than this.
I could see that. One thing I was gonna touch on was the Praetorian Guards. Those they looked so cool, but they moved. I almost feel like I wish they had more um martial arts training, like whoever's acting as these Praetorian Guards, because they seemed really stiff. And with how easily Dinjarin was able to take them out, yes, he struggled, but it makes Paz Vizsla's death just that much less meaningful, I think, because they took him out no problem. And that guy is like twice the size of Mando. Like he should have had no problem taking these guys out. And I know that's a previous episode, and still one of my beefs with that I forgot to mention before is that he didn't like pick up one of the other stormtroopers' blasters or something to try to fight back somehow stronger. And it seemed like he kind of gave up for no reason. Um,
I would say yes and no. The reason why I would say no is because we know that Mando can beat the other guy in a fight.
yeah,
So there's a chance that Mando could do better while fighting these guards. Um, but
I feel like they could have done a little better.
yeah, I think one other thing to consider is that this season of Mando is not the first time we saw these guards. Do you remember the other time we saw them? We saw them in The Last Jedi, and they put up a fight against Rey and Kylo Ren.
Oh, I thought you meant in this show, so I was trying to think of when we've seen them in this show.
No, I said there's a place that we saw them that wasn't in this show.
I guess I thought you meant this episode.
Mm.
Continue.
And they put up a fight against Rey and Kylo. One of them should have killed Rey, but Ryan Johnson, you and your CGI stuff took it out. We all know it. They almost killed them. So you're putting Mando on the same pedestal, if not better, than Kylo and Rey together. Granted, I think there was probably there definitely was more guards that were fighting Rey and Kylo, but it still kind of applies there.
I feel like maybe it would have been cooler if somebody was fighting with him.
I think Grogu was a little bit, but that
I
does
mean, someone of normal size.
wow. I guess size does matter for uh little Grogu.
When it comes to fighting, yes, it does.
Let's see. One thing that we both weren't too super keen about was like the way the episode ended. Um, it really sucks to say, but I'm not looking forward to another season of Mando if they have one.
Oh, they could have easily done like another 10 minutes of just, like 10 years later and they're prospering and that's it.
Even just kind of thinking off the top of my head, they could have had like some small shot of like the real Gideon finding out that his clone base was destroyed, and then we're like, uh-oh, now it's gonna go down in season 4, kind of a thing. Because they made him like super upset because of what they did. Um, so I don't know. We ended it basically where everybody's in a good place. There's no threats in the galaxy. Everything is great.
There's no cliffhangers.
No, just the fact that Grogu and Mando have their own little house on the prairie right now, and they might do some odd jobs, which might be kind of cool. It might bring us back to the roots of Mando, where he could do some of these oddball jobs, like real jobs, not like. I feel like it would be kind of cool to get more episodes that were kind of like the Jack Black and Lizzo episode, but not so late in the season. Like have that be a second or third type episode where he's doing, cool things like that with the investigation and whatnot.
Are you
But
offering me a job?
yeah, they are offering him a job.
Couldn't help it.
But yeah, unfortunately, I'm not excited for a new season. I am very excited for Ahsoka, so I'm looking forward to that. If they announce season 4 of Mando, I guess I'll just watch it when it comes out, just because I really have no expectations anymore. Maybe that was
I
their
just
plan
wish
this
we
whole
would have
time.
had this energy the whole season, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's better late than never, but it does not. It does not save the season. So I guess I can kind of just roll us right into our final little question here. What's our thoughts on the season? Kind of already told you mine, where uh,
Meh.
the season was very lacking. I feel like season 3 does not compare to season 1 or season 2, unfortunately. I feel like this season was more or less a passing of the torch. So, like, trying to pass things on to Bo Katan, even though Mando accidentally got all this authority in the world of Mandalorians. So,
I can't believe we wasted a whole episode on Dr. Pershing with
yeah,
no payoff.
yeah, we didn't get anything from him later on. We don't even know what happened to him.
I really wish we would have had some sort of like mad scientist, like, like I made these clones or just something crazy just to make that episode worth something to show that like he's psychotic now, but still really smart, or I don't know, something, anything, literally anything.
I almost feel like that episode wasn't really about him. Like maybe that episode was just to show, you know, what happened to the people that worked for the Empire and now they're in society. What
It did
happened?
it did get to introduce Elia, so when we saw her later in the season, we knew who she was.
Well, we knew who she was in season 2.
We did.
She was part of Gideon's group at the end of season 2.
I guess I remember her saying something about working with Gideon, but I don't remember her working with Gideon.
Yeah, it wasn't very much screen time, but she was in season 2. But yeah, I don't understand why they did that so much. Basically, what we do here is we try to tell ourselves things to make us feel better about these episodes. So that's what I'm trying to do. But it'll never get rid of the feeling of that doesn't seem right, or it should have been handled differently.
That was a waste of time.
Yeah. So
Which, again, if we had a 20 episode season or something like a normal TV show like they used to be, that would have been a totally fine episode. But when you only have, what would we have, 8 episodes? You can't waste an entire episode on something like that. It's too much time.
yeah. Here's a question for you, and I don't think there's an answer to it. So that's why I'm asking you. This show is called The Mandalorian. It's all about Mando. If you were to pick one thing, what would you say that Mando learned this season? How did he grow as a character?
He was in it so little because
Exactly.
they focused so much on Bo. And I think that's because kind of similar to popular belief and what I've seen in the news and stuff is that the Mandalorian is not Din Djarin anymore. They have focused so hard on calling him Din and calling him Din Djarin for the last several episodes. Nobody calls him Mando anymore.
I think
And
the
I
only
think that's because
person
he's not the Mandalorian anymore.
I feel like the only person that does is Grief.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking about that and I was like, he didn't learn anything this. The reason why that comes to mind is because I remember um this is a long time ago, totally different subject. But when Sam Raimi was making the Spider-Man films, when he was being asked about Spider-Man 4, he had said, I'm not gonna make one unless there's something for Peter to learn. And so that's always kind of stuck with me with these different movies and shows is like, how did the character grow? Because if they didn't, it was just essentially a Transformers movie where we're all just there to see explosions. Um, so I don't think Mando grew at all in this episode or this season. I think again it was a passing of the torch to Bo-Katan because clearly she grew throughout this show, and the Mandalorians grew together because they came together in the end. But Mando, as in Din Djarin, I don't think grew at all.
He didn't really have any character development, no. It's interesting that you described the whole, learning things throughout the season or movie and stuff like that. I haven't really heard that viewpoint before, but I like it. I'm very curious to see for Bo-Katan then, because, she said in her last episode, or the last episode she was in, that basically the only reason why people are listening to her is because of the dark saber, and we don't have the dark saber anymore. I got crushed. So are they going to reforge it now that the forge is there, or is she still even going to be the ruler? Because what I really want is for the armorer to be the ruler, because
Mm.
I think she's a lot cooler than Bo-Katan, and even just her costume design is a lot cooler. And I don't know, she just has a way about her. She has a commanding presence. And now she has this gigantic forge. Like, it's like, I don't know, 100 times the size of the one that she had before. So the armor is what I'm waiting to see what happens next for her.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see until season 4, I suppose, unless they happen to show up in the Ahsoka show. But I don't want them to. I want Ahsoka's show to just be what they're doing and focus on it. Because based on the trailers, I think that they got something good going for them. And that's what I'm looking forward to. Of course, we got Jedi Survivor coming out very soon. I'm looking forward to that. But aside from Survivor, Ahsoka is the biggest project I'm looking forward to next. And I really don't want Mando or any of the Mandalorian stuff to be in it because I don't want the like jet lag to affect it, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? We feel weird about this show. I'm trying to go open minded into Ahsoka, and I don't want to be like, oh, there's the Mandalorians. Now I got to deal with this soap opera again of,
We
um,
need a fresh start.
yeah, we need something fresh. We don't need this Bo-Katan stuff, shoved down our throats anymore. At least not for a while. We all know who she is. All right. Anything else you want to say about the episode or the show for the season?
They better make sure next season has this level of energy the whole time.
I want to believe that they're gonna learn from this. I want to believe it. What they did this season with 6 episodes that really established nothing, and then we had 2 episodes that were pretty good. That's not success. No way. a getting 2 questions right out of 8 on a test is still majorly failing. So they need to do something where throughout the show is keeping us engaged and involved. There should be a villain that is the overarching villain within the first 1 or 2 episodes. There should be some sort of threat. I realized that this show had like the pirates and stuff. That was a small arc that showed no premise in the big arc. So, you know, I really I don't think we can count that. If the show was longer and not 8 episodes, I could see that being like a 3-episode arc that was something cool within the season. The Clone Wars used to do that all the time, where they had 2 or 3 episode arcs, and then you know, you had the overall story of the season still going on in the background. But the problem is that Clone Wars had 20 plus episodes a season, and the Mandalorian runtimes aren't that far off from them. I realize the Clone Wars are about 21 to 25 minutes a piece, but so is Mando once you cut out all the recap and all the credits. So yeah, don't get that mixed up. You know it's happening. All right. I think that about wraps it up. So that was our talk on The Mandalorian Season 3 and also the season finale of Season 3. If you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We won't have any episode discussions. Well, I do want to do a video on Visions, and that comes out in 2 or 3 weeks. I think it comes out on Star Wars Day. So I will have a small little talk on that. It'll be all the episodes in one talk. But then the next thing that covers shows will be Ahsoka. So look forward to that. We will have Jedi Survivor stuff day 1. So we're going to have the unboxing of the deluxe edition for PS5. And then we will also try to get gameplay out as soon as we can. I have very cheap software, so sometimes it takes a minute, but it will be there on day 1. So look forward to that. Drops a like if you like the video, and drops a comment letting us know your thoughts on this episode and the season as a whole. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.